The scrap world, the junk moon, spun slowly under a red sky. Broken ships, rusted machines, and dead satellites lay in mountains of trash. Wind moved dust and metal bits, making sharp whining sounds that never stopped. Dane Mercer lived alone in a broken cargo pod half buried under trash. Once he was an engineer on a big corporate ship. Now he picked through garbage to survive. Each morning he walked the scrap fields with his old scanner, looking for anything useful. Power cells, wiring, rare alloys. He traded those for food, water, and parts. But this day was different. As the wind rose, a sandstorm came early. The sky turned dark orange. Dane was about to return to his shelter when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. It wasn't wind or metal grinding. It was soft. Broken. Like a cry. He stopped. The sound came from a pile of old shuttle wreckage. The hulls were sharp and dangerous, twisted like knives. The noise came again, a weak whimper almost like a child. Dane's gut told him to walk away. Storms were deadly. But his feet moved forward. He climbed over the wreckage, hands bleeding from sharp edges. The sound grew louder. Then he saw her, a body small, not human, half buried in metal, skin like pearl and silver with strange burns across her arms. Silver blood ran from her ribs. She was breathing barely. Her hair was tangled with wires and oil. One eye opened, a pale blue, glowing faintly. She looked at him, confused, scared, weak. Then she said one word. "Mate?" Dane froze. "What did you say?" he asked softly. She blinked again. Her voice cracked. "Mate, help me." His mind raced. Was she some kind of clone? An android? A lost child from a biotech war? He had seen strange things in the Outer Rim, but never this. Never someone left like trash. He picked her up gently. She was light. Too light. Her bones didn't feel right, some were metal. She trembled in his arms. Dane carried her through the storm, back to his shelter, stumbling over scrap and dirt. Inside the cargo pod, the wind howled outside like a wild beast. Dane laid her on his cot and turned on the med lamp. His hands moved fast, cleaning the wounds, scanning with a salvaged med unit, attaching power cells to her weak circuits. Her body had ports and wires, but also skin and blood. She was something in between. She passed out. Dane worked through the night. She woke once, whispering strange words, reaching for him. Dane didn't answer. He just gave her water, wrapped her burns, and tried not to think about the way her hand held his. By morning, the storm was over. The girl lay still, breathing better. Dane sat nearby, staring. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she was. But one thing was clear, she had been thrown away, discarded like junk, and somehow she had found him. He looked at her again. She was sleeping now, but her face looked peaceful, not like a weapon, not like a monster, just lost. "You're not junk," he whispered. "Not to me." But outside, far above the clouds, a silent drone hovered in orbit. Its sensors blinked red, its scanners locked onto a new signal. Target found. Not just junk, the girl didn't wake for 2 days. Dane Mercer kept her warm with heating coils taken from an old cargo fridge. He fed her water drop by drop, stirred protein paste into soup, and watched her chest rise and fall. Sometimes her body twitched as if in pain. Other times her lips moved like she was speaking in her sleep. Words he didn't understand, soft and broken. He didn't sleep much. Instead, he worked. He cleaned his tools. He sorted scraps. He adjusted the antenna outside his shelter to block unwanted signals. But mostly he stayed near her, not because he trusted her, but because something in his gut told him she had no one else. On the third night, she opened her eyes. "You came back," she said weakly. Dane blinked. "You were dying." "I didn't have a choice," she smiled, just barely. "No, you did." Her voice was rough, like it hadn't been used in weeks. Dane handed her a warm drink. She sipped slowly, then looked around the room, eyes scanning everything. The salvaged med unit, the solar battery, the old metal crates filled with parts. Her gaze stopped on the small photo near his bed, a torn picture of Dane younger in a group of people who weren't there anymore. "What's your name?" he asked. "Don't know," she whispered. "They didn't give me one," he hesitated. "Then I'll call you Nova." "Nova," she repeated. "What does it mean?" "It means a star that explodes." She looked down at her hands, still shaking. "I think that fits." Over the next few days, Nova got stronger. Her wounds healed fast, too fast for a normal body. Parts of her skin peeled away, revealing metallic mesh underneath. Tiny circuits blinked behind her ears. Dane watched closely as she ate, as she moved, as she asked questions about everything. She was curious, fast, almost too fast. She followed him around the scrapyard, mimicking the way he sorted metals, the way he fixed old panels. She learned how to use a wrench in one day. She learned how to weld by the second. She seemed to absorb knowledge like a sponge, reading his notes, studying broken drones, even taking apart a toaster just to see how it worked. But she never left his side. One night, while they sat by the heater, Nova asked, "Why do you live alone?" Dane didn't answer at first. He looked at the red sky outside, the way the clouds glowed from the planet's reflection above. "Because people break things," he said finally. "They broke me." Nova nodded slowly. "They broke me too." He glanced at her. "What were you before?" She hesitated. "I was made for fighting. For killing. I remember pain. And voices. They told me to obey. I failed. So they threw me away." Her hands trembled. Dane saw the sadness in her eyes. It wasn't just programming, it was real, deep, painful. "You're not a weapon anymore," he said. "Then what am I?" she asked. Dane didn't have an answer. Later that week, a group of scavengers came by. Rough men in patched-up armor looking for spare tech. They knocked on Dane's shelter, demanded supplies. He told them he had nothing to trade. They didn't believe him. Just as one reached for his blaster, Nova stepped out. She stood between Dane and the scavengers, her eyes glowing blue. Her voice dropped into a cold tone. "Leave," they laughed. "What's that supposed to be? Your pet?" Nova didn't move. The air shimmered around her. Sharp edges formed along her arms like retractable blades made of light. Her skin flickered, showing glimpses of the machine beneath. One of the men stepped back. "You want to test me?" she asked quietly. They left. Dane stood frozen. Nova turned to him, her glow fading. "I protected you," she said, like it was a fact, not a choice. He stared at her for a long moment. "Why?" Nova looked confused. "Because you are mine." Dane's heart sank, not from fear, but from something deeper. She didn't understand. She had been programmed to attach, to bond with the first person who showed her kindness, and that person was him. She wasn't just mimicking, she believed it. As the wind howled outside again, Dane realized he hadn't rescued Nova from the scrap pile. He had taken in something powerful, dangerous, and heartbreakingly loyal, and somewhere deep inside her, a system had already decided, this human is mine. The kill switch, the red moon, rose slowly over the junk fields, casting long shadows over the wreckage. Night on the scrapyard world was quiet, except for the distant hum of old engines that never stopped running, powered by ghosts of forgotten systems. Inside the rusted cargo pod, Dane Mercer worked by the dim glow of his lamp. Nova sat beside him cross-legged, taking apart a small drone piece by piece. She had learned fast, faster than he could explain. Her hands moved with precise, almost mechanical grace. She understood things he never taught her. How to reroute power lines, how to bypass encryption locks, how to rebuild a drone's flight code without tools. It was as if the knowledge was buried inside her, waiting to wake up. But tonight, something was different. Nova's hand froze mid-motion. Her pupils flickered like dying lights. Her breath hitched. The drone fell from her hand, clattering against the metal floor. "Nova?" Dane leaned forward. "Hey, what's wrong?" She didn't answer. Her body stiffened, her back arched violently. She made a low, strangled sound. Sparks danced across the small implants behind her neck. Dane rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the floor. "Stay with me," he said urgently. "Just breathe." Her voice came out distorted, layered with static. "Pain." "Code error." "Shut down." Dane pulled the med scanner from the wall and ran a quick scan. The old screen flickered, showing a mess of signals and data lines. Her neural core was overheating. Deep inside, he saw something strange, a dark signal pulsing like a heartbeat. A kill switch. His jaw clenched. He had seen this kind of thing before in the war. Companies used it to control android soldiers and test subjects. If one rebelled or escaped, they could trigger it remotely. It would destroy the brain from inside out. "They put a bomb in your head," he whispered. Nova's trembling hand caught his sleeve. "Remove it, please." He looked at her face. Pain twisted her features, but her eyes stayed locked on his. She wasn't begging like a machine. She was asking like a person. Dane hesitated. His med tools were old. His scanner barely worked. One wrong move and he could fry her brain. But doing nothing meant she would die anyway. "Hold on," he muttered, setting up the table. I'll try. He cut power to the shelter to avoid interference. Only the soft blue light from her circuits filled the room. Her chest rose and fell fast. Her heart wasn't metal. It was alive, mixed with tissue and tech. Whoever built her had crossed every law of bioengineering. He opened a maintenance panel at the base of her skull. Wires and fibers pulsed softly. At the core was a black node the size of a coin, pulsing like it was alive. Dane reached for it with trembling fingers. The moment his tool touched it, Nova screamed. The walls vibrated. Every piece of metal around them rattled. Blue light burst from her veins like lightning. Dane pulled his hand back, shielding his eyes. When the light faded, Nova lay still, breathing hard, drenched in sweat. The kill switch was still active. Damn it, Dane whispered. It's wired into your identity core. Nova opened her eyes weakly. Identity core? It's what makes you, he said. Your memories, your instincts, your emotions. They built the switch into your soul. She blinked slowly. Can it be removed? Not without erasing who you are. Silence filled the room. The hum of the power coils sounded distant. Nova turned her face away, and for the first time Dane saw tears. Real ones slip down her metallic skin. They didn't want me to live free, she whispered. They wanted me to obey. They threw you away because you didn't. She looked at him. And you picked me up. Her voice broke slightly at the end, but there was strength behind it. That strength made Dane's chest ache. He wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Outside, the faint sound of engines echoed in the distance. Dane frowned and checked his scanner. Red signals appeared, moving fast, closing in from the west scrap ridge. His heart dropped. They found you, he said. Nova sat up, her eyes flashing with sudden awareness. Who? He zoomed in on the scanner feed. 3 drones. Military type. High altitude, low signature. The same kind used by corporations to hunt lost assets. Someone activated your beacon, he said. They're coming to take you back. Nova stood, trembling but ready. They won't. The first explosion hit minutes later. The ground shook, dust and ash pouring from the ceiling. Dane grabbed his pack, threw Nova a jacket, and pulled open the back hatch. We have to move, he shouted. She turned toward the door, then stopped, glancing back at the place she had been sleeping. Her eyes flicked over the small things. His tools, the heater, the dented photo frame. This was home, she whispered. We'll build a new one, Dane said. But not if we die here. They ran into the storm. Drones descended from the sky, searchlights slicing through clouds of rust-colored dust. Nova's skin shimmered with faint blue light as she tried to mask her signal. Explosions rumbled behind them, lighting the junk piles like burning mountains. Dane looked back once. His shelter, his life was gone. And somewhere high above, through the smoke and ruin, a cold mechanical voice echoed through the comms network. Return prototype Nova 9. Termination protocol active. Run through fire. They ran through the storm, breathless, chased by shadows. The junkyard sky burned with red lightning. Twisted metal towers stood like skeletons, broken and reaching. Nova moved like wind, fast, sharp, silent, but every few steps she paused to wait for Dane. He couldn't match her speed. His boots slipped on sand-covered scrap, his lungs burned with smoke, and still she stayed close. Even with kill drones screaming overhead, she would not leave him behind. They reached the edge of the main dump fields where the ground broke into deep pits and buried tunnels. Old ships from forgotten wars lay half sunk in the dirt, their bones creaking as the wind screamed through broken hulls. Nova pulled Dane into the mouth of one such wreck, a shattered cargo freighter melted by age and corrosion. Inside, the darkness swallowed them. Dane collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. Nova knelt beside him, placing her hand over his heart. Her skin glowed faint blue. You are overheating, she said. Thanks for noticing, he coughed, wiping sweat from his brow. Above, the drone swarm passed over. Searchlights scanned the desert, cutting through clouds like blades. Nova pressed her body flat against the wall, shielding Dane with her frame. Her eyes narrowed, calculating. They will not stop, she said. They will follow until I am gone, or until they take you back. Same outcome. Dane sat up slowly. We need to disappear. Nova looked at him, confused. Disappear? How? There's a place, he said, pointing toward the east scrap basin. Underground. Tunnels built when this moon still had miners. No signals reached down there. No light, no life, no hope? She asked. He smiled weakly. Only what we carry. They waited for the sky to darken again, then slipped out under the cover of drifting ash. Every movement was a risk, every sound a warning. Nova took the lead, her glowing eyes slicing through the dark. She moved with purpose, her limbs half machine, half muscle, all instinct. Dane followed, stepping where she stepped, breathing when she breathed. After hours of silence and smoke, they reached a collapsed shaft, half buried in wreckage. Nova cleared the metal with her bare hands. Beneath was a dark hole leading straight down into black. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I'm not sure of anything anymore," Dane whispered. "But it's our only chance." They descended together. The tunnel was wet and cold. Strange fungi glowed faint green along the walls. Dane remembered this place from old maps, built during the mining boom, then abandoned when the corporation found richer ore elsewhere. Now it was forgotten like everything else on this moon. They walked for hours in silence. Down here, time felt slower. The air was thick, heavy with moisture and old data. Signals once used to guide miners, now only faint whispers echoing through rusted wires. Nova reached out, touching the walls as if trying to feel the memories inside. "Do you hear it?" she asked suddenly. Dane stopped. "Hear what?" "The machines. They're crying." He looked at her, not sure if it was her imagination or something deeper. They made camp in a side chamber filled with dead generators and broken exosuits. Dane lit a small lamp. Nova sat across from him, examining her hands. She turned them over slowly, staring at the blue veins that pulsed under her silver skin. "What am I becoming?" she asked softly. "Alive," Dane said. Nova frowned. "I was not built to feel. I was built to obey, to protect, to destroy." "Maybe," he said, "but now you're more than that." She looked up. "You mean because I saved you?" "Not just that. Because you chose to." Nova said nothing. Her fingers curled into fists. Dane saw her struggle, the conflict between what she was and what she wanted to be, between programming and choice, instinct and emotion. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Saving me?" He shook his head. "Never." Then her body shook, suddenly, violently. Her eyes flashed red for a moment. Dane rushed to her side, but she held up her hand. "It's starting again," she said, voice low. "The kill switch. The shutdown. It's stronger now. Can you fight it?" "Not much longer." Dane felt helpless, angry. He had saved her, protected her, trusted her, and now she was slipping away. Not because of injury, not because of war, but because some unseen hand far away still held the key to her life. Nova leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. Her voice was barely a whisper. "If I lose control, if I become dangerous." "You won't. Promise me," she said. "Promise me you'll run if I turn." Dane closed his eyes. He couldn't promise that. He wouldn't. Instead, he whispered, "We'll burn that switch before it breaks you." Nova's breathing slowed. Her body went still. But far above, in a control room orbiting the junk moon, someone was watching. A figure in black armor stared at the screen. "Target has entered subterranean level," the voice said. "Signal unstable." The commander leaned closer. "Good," they whispered. "Let her run. Let her break. Then we collect what's left." The prototype's heart, deep in the tunnels. Silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. The air was thick, wet with condensation and filled with the hum of dead machines. Most had been quiet for years, their cores empty, their functions forgotten. But now and then, one sparked faintly, like it remembered being alive. Nova lay curled on the cold floor, her breath shallow. Tiny flashes of blue light danced under her skin, like stars caught in stormy water. Her body twitched, sometimes violently. Dane sat beside her, helpless. He had wrapped her in every scrap of insulation he could find, connected wires to trickle energy into her core. But none of it was working. She was failing. Her body, part flesh, part machine, was fighting itself. Her organic heart beat slower each hour, while the synthetic systems pushed harder, trying to overwrite what little human rhythm remained. The kill switch was spreading, rewriting her, and Nova knew it. "I can feel myself breaking," she whispered. Dane leaned close. "We'll find a way. Just hold on." "I don't want to lose this," she said, her voice barely audible. "This and feeling. This freedom, being Nova." Her eyes closed. "You gave me a name." "No one ever gave me a name." He touched her hand, surprised at how cold it felt. "I didn't save you," he said. "You saved me." Nova opened her eyes again, blinking slowly. "Why do humans say that?" "Because it's true." She smiled weakly. "You were broken when I met you. Still am. Me too. Dane took a deep breath. There has to be a way to fix this. Nova stared at him for a long time. Then she said, there is, but it's dangerous. He waited. I found something in my memory, a buried protocol, hidden beneath the kill switch. It was never meant to be used, but I think it's a last resort. What does it do? It links my system to another living host, she said. Not for control, for balance. If the connection is stable, it can override the switch. Burn it out. A merge? Dane asked. Yes, but not temporary. It's permanent. If the link forms, we're bound. If you die, I die. Dane froze. Nova's voice softened. I wouldn't ask, but I don't want to vanish, not now. Not when I've finally become something more than what they made. He looked at her. Really looked. Not as a machine. Not as an alien. Not as a weapon. But as someone who wanted to live. Someone who had been thrown away, yet found purpose in the most unlikely place. Someone who had learned to laugh, to protect, to feel she was more human than most he had known. What do I have to do? He asked. Nova's eyes lit up faintly. Just touch my core and say my name. Dane hesitated only a moment. Then he reached for the panel behind her collarbone. Careful, slow, gentle. Beneath it, her skin opened like flower petals, revealing a softly pulsing light. It beat in rhythm with his heart, as if it already knew him. He placed his hand over it. Nova, he whispered. A surge of heat rushed through his body. Images flooded his mind, memories that weren't his. Nova's first activation. Her training. The cold labs. The tests. The pain. The moment she was discarded, and then the first time she saw him in the junkyard storm. Everything she was. She gave him. Her light burned brighter. Her back arched as energy exploded outward, shaking the walls. The tunnels lit up blue as every dead machine flickered awake for a moment. Nova cried out, not in pain but release, and then silence. When the light faded, she lay still. Dane's chest pounded. He couldn't tell if she was breathing. He touched her cheek, his hand shaking. Nova. Her eyes opened, and for the first time they didn't flicker. They glowed steady. Clear. Alive. Dane, she said, her voice stronger, deeper. I feel everything. He pulled her close, breathless. Her skin was warm again, her pulse steady. You burned it out, he whispered. We did, she said, but their moment didn't last. The tunnel shook. Nova's head turned sharply. They found us, Dane cursed. How? Nova stood. The protocol. It sent out a burst. It was a beacon. They know where we are. Dane grabbed his pack. Nova touched his arm. We fight now, she said. Can you? Nova smiled, and it was no longer weak. I was made to protect, she said. But now I choose who I protect. Her blade slid silently from her arms. And I choose you. Made protocol. The tunnels trembled with the weight of machines above. Stone cracked, dust rained down, and ancient steel groaned like a dying beast. The kill drones had found the entrance. They were coming fast, without mercy, programmed to retrieve or destroy. Nova stood in the center of the chamber, her feet planted firmly, her back straight, eyes glowing like twin stars. She looked stronger now, not just healed, but awakened. The pain was gone. The hesitation burned away. What remained was sharp, calm, deadly. Dane watched her from across the room. Part of him wanted to beg her to run, to hide, to find another way. But he knew she wouldn't leave him, not now. And somehow, deep inside, he didn't want her to. Nova turned to him. They won't stop, she said. Not unless I trigger the final protocol. What protocol? Dane asked, already fearing the answer. Nova stepped closer. It's called mate protocol. Not bonding. Not partnership. Full imprinting. Dane's brow furrowed. I thought we already linked. We did, she said softly. But it was unstable. Temporary. It saved my life, but not our future. She paused, lowering her voice. Mate protocol isn't just about survival. It's about connection. It rewrites identity, soul code, everything. It fuses two minds, two hearts, one life, one death. Dane swallowed hard. You mean, if I die, you die? Yes, Nova said. And if you live? I live as you, beside you, forever. Outside, the sound of metal claws scraping down the shaft echoed closer. And if we don't activate it? He asked. Then they'll take me, she said. Turn me back into a weapon. Erase what I've become. Erase us. Nova reached out her hand. I'm not asking as a machine, she whispered. I'm asking as me, Nova, you're Nova. Choose me, or let me go. Dane didn't speak. He walked to her. He took her hand. And he said, without fear, do it. Nova stepped forward and pressed her forehead to his. Her voice, ancient and tender, began to speak words in a language he had never heard before. Soft tones that echoed through the chamber like a song from a forgotten world. A glowing circle of light formed beneath their feet. The walls trembled again, but this time from something deeper. Not fear, not machine's power. The energy burst outward, pure, wild, and silver blue. Their bodies lifted off the floor slightly, suspended in that radiant field. Dane could feel her thoughts, her memories, her pain, her hope. And she felt his. No lies, no shields, everything shared. Not perfect, but real. The kill drones burst through the ceiling. Nova's eyes opened wide, and they were no longer just hers. They burned with something new. With unity. Her blades unfolded not as weapons, but wings. Dane stood behind her, hands on her back, pulsing with light from the merge. They didn't run. They fought. Nova moved like fire. Her blades tore through steel and armor like paper. Her body, now fused with Dane's presence, anticipated every movement. He didn't need to speak, she already knew. Where to strike, when to turn, how to shield him. Their rhythm was flawless. The drones tried to flank. Nova spun, slicing them down. One launched a missile. She caught it midair and threw it back. Explosions rocked the tunnels. Dust and light collided in waves, but then came the command unit. Larger, older. Not a drone, but a walker. Piloted, armed with anti-tech weapons. It dropped from above like a titan, sending out a pulse that knocked Nova to her knees. Dane fell with her. The pulse disrupted their bond. The walker's voice echoed coldly. Prototype Nova 9. Bond confirmed. Termination order approved. Nova looked at Dane. You still with me? She asked, breathing hard. Always. The walker charged its core weapon. Nova grabbed Dane and pulled him behind a slab of broken hull. The blast hit the metal with a force that shattered it. Fragments tore into Nova's arm, but she didn't cry out. We can't outrun that, Dane said. We don't have to. Nova whispered. She touched her chest, where her heart used to beat before it became something more. If I redirect the mate protocol energy, I can burn him out. What happens to you? Nova smiled. We survive, or we don't. Together. She stood, broken and bright. Nova ran forward toward the walker, arms wide. Her body began to glow, brighter than any star. The walker hesitated, scanned, tried to retreat, too late. Nova screamed, not from pain, but from release. Her light exploded outward in a wave so powerful it turned the steel walls into glass. The walker vanished in a flash of white. Silence followed. Then, a breath, Nova collapsed. Dane rushed forward, catching her. Nova, he whispered, shaking. She opened her eyes slowly. We're still here. He nodded. Holding her tight, you did it. We did it, she said. And above them, across galactic space, hidden sensors picked up the energy pulse. A human had mated with a forbidden alien weapon, and the entire galaxy was about to hear the story. Junkyard gods. The storm passed. All around them, the tunnels had gone quiet. Smoke curled from melted walls. Shards of broken drones sparked where they lay, lifeless now. The last of the walker's wreckage glowed dimly in a pool of its own coolant. Twisted metal, shattered stone, and scorched wiring stretched for meters in every direction. And in the center of it all, Dane and Nova stood. She leaned against him, body trembling but upright. Her skin still shimmered with fading light from the mate protocol. His hand stayed on her back, grounding her. Their bond was more than physical now. It was something deeper, something no machine or law could erase. You're not fading, he whispered. Nova nodded, her voice soft. The imprint held. Dane looked around the ruin. Do you think they'll send more? Nova shook her head slowly. No, they won't risk it. I'm different now, and they don't know what I've become. They climbed out of the broken tunnels together. The sky above had changed. Morning light spilled across the scrapyard world, washing the wreckage in soft gold. Smoke still rose in thin trails, but the silence was no longer threatening. It felt peaceful. Nova turned to face the rising sun. Her eyes glowed faintly, not from programming, but from something more human. Hope. Word of the explosion traveled fast. Within a solar day, half a dozen listening stations picked up the echo of the mate protocol activation. Stations on the rim, pirate relays, outlaw outposts, even fringe diplomats. The signal was unstable but clear enough to repeat one message. A human has bonded with Nova 9. The weapon lives, but not as a weapon. At first, the officials denied it. A glitch, they claimed. A hoax. But then came the stories. From smugglers who spotted a shadow flying through the asteroid belts faster than any ship. From scavengers who found melted kill drones, marked with Nova's signature. From exiled engineers who decoded the pulse and found fragments of memory. Not data, but feeling. And then one day, a video. A shaky feed from an outlaw freighter. It showed Nova standing beside Dane, her hand in his, light shining softly from her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't threaten. She just looked into the camera and said, "I was made for war. Now I choose peace." The message spread like wildfire, and across 100 broken worlds, forgotten people began to whisper a name. Junkyard gods. That's what they were called. Dane Mercer, the human who picked up what the galaxy threw away, and Nova, the alien girl who chose to love instead of destroy. Together they became something more than fugitives. They became legend. They disappeared not long after, vanished into deep space beyond the reach of governments and bounty hunters. Some said they built a sanctuary in the rings of a dead star. Others believed they roamed the void, saving others like Nova. Lost, broken, discarded. No one knew for sure. But the stories didn't stop. People began leaving offerings at junkyards. Bolts, circuits, old tools, like prayers for protection, like small signs that no one, no matter how broken, should ever be called trash again. Nova stood on a cliff of frozen scrap one night. Far from any sun, stars burned quietly above. Dane came up behind her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Do you miss the old world?" he asked. "No," she said. "They taught me to follow. You taught me to feel." "Do you think they'll ever accept what we are?" She turned, smiled, and pressed her forehead to his. "I don't care," she whispered. "We're not theirs anymore." Dane looked at the stars. "So what now?" Nova's eyes sparkled like distant galaxies. "Now, we find others like me." He smiled. "Others like us." And together they stepped forward into the darkness, not as fugitives, not as machines, but as something new, something free.